What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I am your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the one and only Reckless Rex Ruger. That, of course, if you couldn't tell by that luscious mustache, is my ever so quiet sidekick, the Freddie Mercury puppet. We are back with another amazing episode. In fact, it just so happens to be episode number 300 of Pod Scum that we are celebrating today. And who better than to have on here than James Murphy? Had him on 2 years ago, still my most viewed episode to date. You guys poured in with views, with questions, with comments. So what better way to celebrate? The people have spoken, and you know your boy Reckless Rex is a man of the people. So we are having him back to dive into all things James Murphy. And, there were unanswered questions, stuff people wanted me to ask, stuff people were happy that I asked. There was an outpouring. People are happy to see James Murphy. I know he doesn't do a lot of these. Shout out to my boy Ray Curry for helping set this up and facilitate it. He's a mutual friend. And while I'm on the subject of Ray Curry, go check out his band Outlier, amazing thrash metal band out of North Carolina. Their new album just dropped in the beginning of July. Do yourself a favor and go check that out. And I'm looking forward to chopping it up with my man James Murphy again. His fingerprint is on a lot of the most amazing and seminal extreme metal albums in the history of extreme metal. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, Cancer, Death, Obituary, Testament, Disincarnate. His guitar work, his tone, unmistakable. And not to mention, he's ripped guest guitar solos and probably been all over albums that you don't even know about. So do your homework, do your Googles, check the man's credentials, man. They're legit. Got to wet the whistle here before my guy gets in here. I'm honored to have him back. He's here now. We're going to get down to it and chop it up. Super excited. Here we go. Episode number 300. Away we go. And there he is. What's up, my friend?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good to have you on here, man. And super glad for people that don't know, man, that James had. You just got to lower your camera. We can't see your face.
That might be better for everybody.
Yeah. You said that, I didn't. But yeah. So for people that don't know, man, we actually had this scheduled for last week, and you had some internet problems in your area, man, which are now rectified. It seems correct.
Yeah. They're pretty much rectified, I do believe.
Who would have known, man, that someday we'd arrive at this point in human history, man, where we would just be dependent on all things the internet, and we'd be controlled by the ether. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm old enough that I remember watching the Jetsons when I was a kid, and they would talk to each other on video screens, video calls, and I thought that was just like the crazy future that I wouldn't ever live to see.
Yeah, and now here we are. Yeah, and now here we are, almost at it. Now, I was doing my little preamble before you came on here, telling people this is episode number 300. I certainly wanted to have a landmark guest on here, man. You know, your episode that we did 2 years ago still ranks up there as the most views that I've garnered from any episode. People poured into the comment section. They were happy that I asked some stuff. They were unhappy that I dropped the ball and apparently didn't ask certain stuff. But one of the topics that came up the most, and I think we started to touch on it the other day, was so many people are curious and wanted more Discarnate. And why did that never come to fruition for fans that don't know? I'm sure maybe you've told the story before, but 1993, you put out Dreams of the Carrion Kind, which is an absolute amazing album, a seminal album, I think, in extreme metal. Why didn't we get more Discarnate?
Well, the obvious answer is that I joined Testament and moved to California.
Right.
And, about roughly 7 years later, 8 years, I think I moved there in late 93. And then a little bit into 2001, 4 or 5 months into 2001, I think is when I finally made it back to Florida. But I was really sick. And it took a while to get my diagnosis, of what actually was wrong. And that recovery from that took a really long time. And then I was just in a position where, okay, I'm behind in life. Everything that I need to try to accomplish and do is set back. I didn't know how I was going to live or anything, So I had no money. I had almost nothing to my name because all my gear and guitars and everything were stolen from me when I was sick, or I lost them through some other means. Because when you have that kind of tumor, it affects your brain, it affects your memory.
Sure.
And so there's huge chunks of my gear, both guitars and studio gear, that I don't have any idea what happened to it. A lot of it I know to be stolen, and a few things I know to have, as things were spiraling for me, to have sold them for money to survive.
Sure.
But I did end up in the streets there because no one really knew that I was sick with something medical. They thought I was on drugs.
Yeah.
Frankly,
Yeah.
they thought I had started doing meth or whatever. That definitely was not the case. The heaviest drugs I've ever really done is weed and hash, in my high school days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a hard question to answer, but I know the answer perfectly well. It's just that, I've had to hustle pretty much ever since.
Right.
And for the last probably few years, I've probably been in my best footing to be able to start to, to work on it and do it again. But for 17, 18 years prior, I was just beating myself up doing album after album as either a producer, recording engineer, or mastering engineer.
Right.
And the pay is okay in that stuff. You gotta hustle, you gotta work to really make your money. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to buy a house and pay it off. That was really my goal. I felt I had lost so much ground that I really felt compelled to do that. And so I just knuckled down, worked in the studio, and just did album after album for other people, and ultimately paid off my house, which I managed to do a couple years back.
That's a nice feeling.
Yeah. And since then, that's when I've decided, I've been just so beat up, so run down from the grind of doing albums for other people.
Right.
And I was playing guitar so little comparatively. I mean, I was still playing, but I wasn't playing as much as I really wanted to be, and as much as I felt I should be. I would play, grab a guitar and warm up whenever I needed to record like a guest solo for somebody, for some artist I was working with as a producer. Sometimes they'd ask me to play, something. So, and sometimes just people would contact me out of the blue to play something that,
right.
That was more sporadic during those years. I was mostly known as a producer, and still I did over that 17, 18 years, whatever it was, I did a bunch of guest solos for people. In fact, it was doing that helped me, early on after my recovery, because I didn't really need a lot of gear to do that. I mean, you just need a laptop with a DAW software on it, an interface, and something to record direct with. That's all you need, and you can do guest solo stuff for people. And so that's what I did for a few years, and I saved, I just saved the money up. I was able to stay with family for. I mean, they didn't charge me rent during that time, and that was lucky. But I was working and I was making money and I was contributing to, groceries and bills and stuff. But I was able to buy enough gear to start to take on first mixing work, and then I was able to ultimately to just build a studio.
Yeah.
And I just kept saving my money until I had a lump. And then there was a really cool businessman who I had known, and who was a fan, and whose son was a fan. He asked me what I was up to, and I told him, well, I'm trying to get the money together to build my own studio, to finish it. I've got the building. Basically, I had started buying my house at that point.
Right.
And so I had the house, and I needed to outfit it with the gear, and I had about, I don't know, I probably had a little over 20 grand, something like that, socked away, but I knew I needed more. And he came through and loaned me another 20 grand, and I was able to do everything I needed to do to get up and running and to get myself back fully into that arena. And it was cool. I made an arrangement to pay him off in 2 years, and I paid him off in a year and a half, a little bit early.
Yeah.
And that gear, paid for itself over the years, many, many, many times over, because I was able to live my life and pay off my house, and that's what I did. But it was tough work, and you're going to do a band, even if it's bringing a band back from the dead like Discarnate. And but people got to understand. People have a lot of, they hold that whole project, and the people who like it love it.
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
And it seems like more people love it now than ever did back then, which is makes sense because there's more people now. There's all the original people plus an entire other generation or two that followed, and there's a lot of fans of that record. And I know people want to scratch their head and wonder why I just haven't jumped all over doing that. And this is just one of the reasons that I'm been explaining for the last several minutes here, but it was really just down to survival. You're going to resurrect a band like that, who, while the album was well received critically and by the initial wave of fans, it wasn't a huge success by any stretch of the imagination at that point in time.
It's gained much more of a cult following. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we went out on tour and we would have great shows where there'd be hundreds of people. And then we had shows where there was, a couple dozen maybe, and it was, of course that was more like the mine. In the major markets, we had usually really good crowds. In the smaller markets, we struggled, they call it I used to call it that type of tour that we did for that album. I call it the Eat Shit and Die tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
that's what you do. You just deal with it. You get out there, and so I knew that I would have to have such a lump of capital built up to be able to launch a band again. Being that I did not, I was paying, I was having to pay a mortgage. I was having, all kinds of things like that. But now I got more breathing room. I actually have a little more breathing room. I've been doing what I enjoy to do rather than what I have to do, because my house is paid off, and I still got a car note, but it's not that much left on it. And I'm just building up a little cushion where I can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And starting with COVID, when that sort of hit that culmination point where I was burnt out on being a producer, engineer, doing work for other people, where, you got a strict deadline, the label's breathing down your neck, and half the time what happened to me, I was really poor perhaps at communication, because I never wanted to get between a band and their label. So that's always sort of been my credo, I guess. I communicated with the label when I needed to, but I didn't try to get between a band and their label ever.
Right.
And, there were a number of bands in my last few years of doing it where, a handful or two anyway, where for whatever reason, they would get me their tracks late. Meanwhile, I've made an agreement with the label about when the project's going to be delivered.
Right. So it kind of puts you working at a schedule that you might not be comfortable with.
Yeah. I got to I never had it in me to throw the band under the bus, call up the label and say, "Look, your guys got me there." I should have. And probably a lot of people hearing that, like, why not? You just call them and do it. And perhaps that's why maybe my personality type is not the best for maintaining long term that kind of career. Having said that, I did it for over 20 years between California and when I restarted it in Florida. I did it for over 20 years, and I, did a lot of good work that I'm real proud of, and but there's definitely a burnout factor.
Oh yeah. I think we all get to that point. It's nice to hear you say though, man. and the way you word it, you know, certainly makes it sound like you have a fondness for some of the stuff that you've done. Obviously, you know, you're approaching it with like a humbleness. But I said before you got in here that your fingerprint is certainly on some of the most seminal extreme metal albums, you know, that have ever been made. You know, to put you on the hot seat, when you look at the albums that you've been on, if you had to pull one piece of work in the extreme metal world and say, hey, here's a nice snapshot of some of the best work that I think I did, what album would it be? I mean, people think of, you know, people certainly think of a spiritual healing, or they think of Cause of Death, or they think of Death Shall Rise. You know, lots of projects that you were on. Is there one where you would say, hey, I'm super proud of what I did on this album?
I would say that I'm proud to varying degrees of pretty much everything that I've done, except, you know, there's the odd guest solo I did on other people's stuff that I'm not fond of.
Yeah, yeah.
I had trouble probably figuring out what I was going to play, and I just beat myself up on it, and I came up with something, and I thought I was happy with it, probably because I was just done.
Yeah,
you know, like, I can't come up with anything. It's come up with something that was halfway okay, and you get excited about it at that point.
Right. But you're forcing it though. Yeah,
so
you're forcing it.
You record it, you send it in, and then you end up hearing it back, and you go, "Oh God,
yeah, this could have been better."
I don't really like that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've been very lucky, you know, of late, that all the session work I've done, I'm pretty happy with them, or really happy with.
Yeah.
And but you know, if you go back into the past, there are certainly guest spots that I've done that I'm not super stoked about. But overall, I'm proud of my entire body of work. If I had to pick a standout, I probably couldn't pick just one. So if I just sort of restrict it to two, I would probably say, you know, Testament Low, my debut with Testament.
Yep.
And Convergence, my first solo album.
Okay. Yeah, and so getting back to the Discarnet, and I think we started to talk about this the other day, and the internet connection was not good. I
think you probably just misspoke a little bit, but it makes me want to address this real quick, because
please.
You said Discarnet, and in actual fact, there is a band now called Discarnet. My band's called Disincarnate.
Disincarnate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but there is a band called Discarnet, which kind of blows my mind. But I mean, they're very good at what they do. They're kind of like a groovy, powerful type of death metal based type of thing. But
okay.
But it has a lot of groove to it. You know, a lot of, you know, they're actually, and I think they spell it with a Y, but it's pronounced Discarnate, and DYSCARNATE, I think. And you know, they're good. They're a very different type of band than Disincarnate. And you know, I did reach out to those guys, and they said they never heard of Disincarnate, so they didn't know.
They haven't done their homework enough, I don't think.
But you know, the Google box is a great tool for that sort of thing. And
it can also often be a found of misinformation too.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing no one ever told them about us. They probably just thought, that band's old. Their album came out in '93. They only did one album. Who cares? You know, it's probably something like that. And you know, whatever. I don't care. More power to them. They're really good at what they do. And you know, and if they happen to see this or whatever, you know, you guys are great. You know,
kudos to you for spelling it differently.
yeah. But Disincarnate, that's what it is.
And so give me an update, because you are the most high profile guy of that band, with no disrespect to the other guys, but can you give us an update on, if you were to do something going forward, would it be the same guys? What is the current status of those gentlemen?
Well, initially I was going to do a new Disincarnate while I was out in California, and that was slated for 1999.
Okay.
And none of those guys are out there, and I wasn't going to use any of those guys. They had all moved on and were doing different things in life.
Okay.
Now, fast forward, you know, 25 years, and you know, I'm back here in the area where most of them are.
Yep.
The drummer, Tommy, he lived in Louisiana, and he had moved to Tampa shortly before we found him back in, you know, 92. And, I reconnected with them, probably about 12 years ago with the idea to do this. I was still in that cycle of having to work. He came out here. I let him stay at a spare room in my house. I even let him set up his practice drums there. And he was, he told me, he admitted to me that he was out of shape and he was going to need to rehearse to practice to get up to snuff to even be able to play the old songs. So I said, well, let's work up some of the old songs to where we can play those together, comfortably. And then we'll, be able to potentially, start a new, do a new thing. And, he came out and he actually found a job. He was a commercial electrician, and he found a job, and he worked at that a little bit, but then he was practicing. Hard for me to remember because you got to understand, I was in my studio,
right,
working on other bands' material.
Right. You had your hands full.
Day in, day out, and I barely had time to even hang out with him. He was just in the other side of my house practicing drums. But I came in to listen to him, want to listen to his progress, and he was just like, "Well, James, I'm still kind of struggling with this, this double kick and these type of beats,
Yeah.
I'm like, he hadn't played that way in many years, and so I said, well, just keep banging it out. I encouraged him, but he just got personally discouraged, and he just decided to go home to Louisiana. And I was talking to him just a couple years ago, and we were just. He knew I was probably going to eventually do it, and he was just like, James, I just can't really play that way anymore. Just get somebody that can. He said, I'd love to do it, but I just don't really play like that anymore. And I was like, well, fair enough, man.
That's refreshing to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. And but we were on good terms. We were shooting, he would call me sometimes just out of the blue, just say, hey man, I was just thinking about you. How you doing? And that was really sweet because I probably only did that once or twice with him, over the years. And he did it a couple handfuls of time with me, so he was just a very thoughtful person.
So he was receptive. Guy. He was receptive to the idea of being involved. It was just a matter of just having the chops still.
Yeah, a matter of him feeling confident that he had the chops. But unfortunately, not that long after our last conversation, he passed away. He died suddenly of a heart failure.
Oh man,
it was really terrible, really tragic. He didn't even like a lot of musicians. I don't think he had health care.
Right.
He had health insurance. So he had not been going to like regular appointments or whatever. And it just caught him and his family and everybody that knew him by surprise,
So aside from doing the work you've done on other people's albums, though, have you actively, now that you've come out of the woods and put so much of this adversity behind you and overcome a lot of these obstacles, have you actually put pen to paper? Would it be safe to say that you have or have begun to work on anything for a new album by Discarnate?
I'm actually just playing one of the new Discarnate riffs I have. Probably can't hear it because of the way these microphones work.
They suck. Yeah,
they noise cancel randomly.
They do. Yep.
It's awful the way they work. But yeah. So I do have riffs. I've got ideas. As far as the other two guys, the singer and the second guitar player, the singer is, I probably should call him and get what he wants me to say about it from him, because I'm not really super privy to his personal situation. But I know he has some health stuff going on, and he's sort of, for one thing, he can't really drive anymore, because I'm not leaking private health information. He's spoken publicly about this quite a lot.
Yeah.
He has some form of epilepsy or some sort. He has seizures.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't really know. I may be misspeaking by saying epilepsy. All I know is that he does have seizures periodically. Yeah. And one of those seizures, he ended up getting ran. He had it while he was driving. Oh,
that's the worst. That's the worst. I know people that have been in that same situation. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. He was alone in the car, so there's no, so basically the cops just basically had to run him off the road. And then when they, approached him to try to get him out of the car, he was unresponsive because he was mid-seizure.
Yeah.
And they don't think about things like that. They just think, oh, you're not obeying commands. We're going to rip your arm out of its socket, smash
Pull
your
out the
face into the
tasers.
ground. Yeah, I mean, they basically half ripped the arm out of his damn socket and planted his face into the ground, and he's had problems with his arm ever since, and it's just he's got health problems that I don't really know the full status of, and I don't really know the full status of his even ability to participate in something like that without having someone to shuttle him back and forth to rehearsals and writing sessions.
So with that being said, you do strike me as a guy very loyal, though, who would continue to work with musicians. So
absolutely, that's another reason why it's been delayed, because I just kept waiting. I kept wanting to do it with the original guys.
You want to be loyal.
Once
to these
I was
guys,
back in Florida, anyway. In California, I had, I was there. What was I going to do? I was either going to do it without them, or and to be fair, it's my baby. I came up with the whole concept. I wrote the largest majority of the music, and what lyrics I didn't write, I came up with the concepts, and and so it is, my project. As they say, I'm the key man in the old contract. There is no Disincarnate without me. So I'm the one that's going to have to bring these guys together if I'm going to do it. We're already down a man, we're already down a soldier. He, unfortunately, his heart just, just.
So would it be safe to say? So would it be safe to say that that, with all due respect to the other members, that they would be fully understanding? It sounds like, if you had to move on and continue the project with new players.
Well, I think Brian, the singer, would, because he's in a situation. But me and Jason, the other guitar player, we're talking quite closely now. We're planning to get together like next week. I think we're going to get together and just play some guitar, bounce some riffs around, and see how that goes. And so we're planning on, I'm planning on working with Jason. He's there. He's in the picture. So it'll at least be him.
This is going to make people ecstatic. This is going to make people extremely ecstatic, because it was the one topic, and I had you on about 2 years ago. It was the one topic that people were extremely happy about whenever it came up in the conversation. People were certainly curious. As I said, it is one of those albums that was it certainly made an imprint on a lot of people. And it certainly left people wanting more. I think I can pretty safely say that that people are always interested in hearing from you, finding out what you're doing, and particularly about that specific band. But I also got a lot of comments in that on the episode of people who touted you as being one of their influences, idols, guitar heroes, for lack of a better term. But I'm wondering,
it's always lovely to hear that.
It is. Yeah. But I'm wondering, for a guy like you, who's revered by other guitar players, who it was for you that you revered.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to date myself immediately by saying these, but I think the color of my hair and beard already did.
Yeah.
And, I was a child of the 70s.
Yep.
And so pretty much all the usual suspects.
Yep.
Ace Frehley.
Yep.
Tony Iommi. Michael Schenker.
Yep. Easily could be the Mount Rushmore of 70s guitar players, right there.
Yeah. And then coming into the 80s, I was immediately, in the early 80s, I was, Angus Young was always a big one. In fact, the first guitar solo by any other guitar player that I ever learned was Back in Black. I think I probably said that on the last.
Yeah.
Not Back in Black. You Shook Me All Night Long, from Back in Black.
Yeah.
That was the first solo that I ever learned. I still remember it, most of it anyway. I sat down and eventually, learned that note per note. It was 1984, probably 1983 or 84. I learned that note for note, and I was quite proud of myself.
Yeah.
But in the early 80s, of course, I was all about Randy Rhoads.
Oh, yes. And that makes me think of, obviously, rest in peace. We just lost the legendary Ozzy Osbourne, an incredible loss to the rock and metal world. But
yeah, it really hit here. Me and my wife both.
Yeah, huge.
Still are, upset and bummed.
Yeah, it's an incredible loss. It's an incredible loss, and Ozzy has left us with, oh my God, man! The amount of music and memories that he's left us with is absolutely.
You got. And I don't want to sound ungrateful, because you got to be grateful for everything that we got out of him.
Oh yeah,
But I would have. How amazing would it be if after that last live concert, Black Sabbath would have done another album, a final album, and this time with Bill Ward.
Yes. Yeah. That would have really cemented it right there. And I'm curious if I can backtrack a little bit, because people always like to hear, origins of a lot of the musicians that I have on here, man. Did you grow up in a very musical household? I know a lot of musicians come from households where it's an artsy kind of atmosphere that, their parents are spinning records all the time.
Well, my dad was always spinning records, no doubt about it. And he played guitar. Now, he was not a prolific guitar player. Like, he didn't play all the time. He didn't play every day. Right. But in his youth, he had learned a bunch of songs like strumming on acoustic guitar.
Yeah, he can hold his own around a campfire.
Yeah, and he liked to pull his guitar out and dust it off every once in a while and play those songs. So I'd have like a week every couple of months where he would be playing his guitar and singing his songs, and he had a handful or two of just old classics that he'd play, and so he started during those times, like when I wasn't allowed to touch his guitar, unless he handed it to me and told, so every once in a while, when he had it out, he would hand it to me and show me, here, let's see if you can learn this chord. This is a D chord.
Yeah.
Put your fingers there, put your fingers there, and there.
Yeah.
And, and here's a G, and, here, and here's an E major, So he showed me.
But you had to do it in his presence, though. There's no running off with the guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Well, during a number of those years, we lived on the third floor of an apartment building in Heidelberg, Germany. And, I knew about what time he got home. I would be home from school an hour or two before.
Oh, and we just lost James. Look at that. James Murphy has created technical issues in episode 300. Would it be an amazing episode if we didn't have a hiccup? I'm going to tell him to pop back in, as we are in the middle of a riveting conversation, episode 300. And you know what? I was waiting to see when we were going to have the technical issue, and we had it. You know what? Now this makes it feel like a real PodScum episode. But yeah, we will definitely get James Murphy right back in here again, of course. And there he is. And I was just saying, when you disappeared, probably hit something on his screen or bumped into something, and I said it wouldn't.
No, I'm actually not touching my phone. Yeah,
it wouldn't be episode 300 if we didn't have a technical issue. I'm almost glad in the way that happened, James. We got it out of the way. It's in there. It's in there for posterity's sake, because I'm not a big editor. I keep it raw. I've had hiccups. I've had people fall out of interviews. I've had grainy audio and video. That part I don't really like. But usually I will not go back and edit or do any slick production stuff. What you see is what you get. I'm 52 years old. I'm too old to be going in there. I got enough on my plate to do, man. So the interview, as you see it, is what you get. But you were talking about the musical household and being able to play your father's guitar.
Yeah, well, we lived on the third floor of this apartment building in Heidelberg, Germany. And I knew about what time he got home. I would be home about an hour and a half or so before he got home.
Yeah.
And I knew where his guitar was. It was in a closet right by the front door, like the little coat closet, by the front door. He kept it in there. And so I would get it out, and and I practiced the chords he had already showed me, and and to be honest, then I just sort of goof around. I was also not allowed to play his stereo. He had a really nice Marantz, the 70s. He was new at the time,
Right.
killer Marantz system and components. Like really nice, big, beefy with wood panels, sides, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I had records, he had records, and so I'd be playing either his records or mine, on his turntable, and I'd have his guitar, and I'd just be, pretending to play along, and occasionally, sometimes trying to figure out a lick or two here or there. But I wouldn't, I don't know if you could technically, I mean, this goes back to when I was probably, 11 and 12 years old. 10, 11 years old. I don't think that you could rightly say that I had started, that's when I started playing guitar. I didn't really get, because I wasn't allowed a guitar of my own, and I wasn't allowed to touch it until I was about 17, 16.
Why do you think it was? Why do you think it was that you weren't encouraged, man? Because your father had a guitar. Did he not want you to go the musician route?
He thought it was fine to
as a hobby,
to play as like a little hobby, to play like the way he did, just to strum and sing along old folk songs and stuff. But he didn't see it as a something that I should be looking at as a career. Not that he ever took that much interest in what I would do as a career. He just But he didn't think my dad was a character. He was just his own kind of guy. He was not a helicopter parent by any stretch of the imagination. I was more, I'm a typical Gen X 70s kid who I was a latchkey kid, and I was turned out. I was onto the street to do what I will until the streetlights came on.
Yeah, our generation. Our generation. I echo that sentiment too, man. I mean, I had great parents, man, but we did do a lot of, our generation did figure out a lot for ourselves and do a lot of raising of ourselves and our peers. I mean, it was just the way it was back in the 70s, in the 80s. So it sounds like, and from hearing your work on other albums, you obviously are a polished, amazing and technical guitar player that could probably play in any genre that you wanted to, man. So how do you make the foray into extreme metal? Like when does that bug bite you?
Well, I mean, I started, as you can tell, I started slowly getting, I went from Kiss to eventually into like Ozzy and Judas Priest and stuff, and then again in Germany, but in a different city this time. We were living near Frankfurt, Germany, and we were living in a little village called Butzbach, not probably about 40 minutes drive away from Frankfurt. And I was going to school in Frankfurt, and I made the school was. I'm not saying this to brag. It's just I have to say this part to tell the story properly. School was easy for me.
Yeah,
I didn't sweat school. I would finish all my work sometimes, before what was given as homework. I would have it done before the bell rang to go to the next class.
Yeah,
because and what I was doing, the reason why I did that is because I did not want any homework. I wanted to go home and I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to play guitar.
Yeah.
And I also liked to skip school a lot.
I did too. Yeah, me too.
For those who don't know, the way to get away with skipping school is to have excellent grades.
Yes.
An unreproachable report card.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you do that, especially back then in the 80s at the school that I went to, a Department of Defense school in Germany.
Yeah.
It was either American kids or mixed American German kids that had one of each parent, one American and one German.
Nobody kicks up a fuss. Kicks up a fuss.
And it was fairly liberal in terms of their policies with regard to coming and going off campus. It was literally an open campus. They didn't stop you from leaving the campus. You would get in trouble if you missed your classes, but that only tended to happen if there was some sort of alarm bell because of your grades. Like my grades were excellent, so no one cared.
Right. Are you getting exposed to any of the metal? Is any
absolutely
of the metal?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Yeah. what I would do, because I had started, curating a really nice little vinyl collection. And so I would skip school, and you have to walk through where the officers' house.
Yep. We lost James again. What is going on, folks? That is now two hiccups. Will we hit 3 hiccups? I don't know. Who knows? But again, we are in the midst of episode number 300. Probably be a long one. We got lots to cover with legendary extreme metal guitar player James Murphy. And so far, we've had 2 hiccups. I wouldn't expect anything else. You guys wouldn't expect anything else. But if you're all in and you're invested in this conversation, you are certainly hanging on every word of the legendary James Murphy. And he's back again, man. That's 2 technical issues, man. So far, so good, man. I wonder what's going on.
I don't know. I just asked my wife to if her phone was on the Wi-Fi network to take it off and go onto the 5G. So
okay, gotcha.
Hopefully that'll help.
But you were getting into like how you were discovering metal in Germany.
Yeah. I would skip. At the time there were these newsprint rags, called Rock Hard and Metal Hammer. They weren't even glossy yet then. They were like newsprint.
Yeah, the old school.
Yeah, I would buy them, and by that time I already spoke decent enough German. I could read them. They were only in German then.
Yeah,
and so I would see the advertisements, and I was like, "Oh wow, Slayer! What? Oh, this looks sick."
Yeah,
I had heard, and plus I did some tape trading, so I had heard some of this stuff in advance on tape trading, and so I would skip school and go around to various German record stores. Like I would just literally walk off campus past. I mean, our school was so loose. I mean, we had a smoking area.
Yeah.
So I'd go through the cafeteria, walk past the smoking area and through the hedges, and then you'd be in the officers' housing, and really nice houses for high-level officers. And I would walk through their neighborhood, and then boom, as soon as you left their neighborhood on the other side, you passed a non-commissioned officers club, and then that was it. That was the last American part, and you were on the German economy, as they would say.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's actually better. Your camera up like that. That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Up a little more. Up a little bit more. If you could turn it up.
I can't control it. You see what I'm saying? It's
gotcha.
All around. So I'm sorry about that.
At the time when you're in Germany, I'm just curious. Are any of the Teutonic German thrash metal bands already up and active?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say I kind of lost my thread, man. Let me kind of go to your question.
Creator, Destruction, Sodom, or any of these bands already?
Destruction and Sodom were definitely starting up. So was Creator. Yeah. Creator had like Endless Pain and stuff. That's what I was getting to. I would get onto the German economy and then walk to the nearest U-Bahn station.
Yeah.
Which was called Miquela Dicasali Station. And hop on that sucker. And then it was a couple of stops to a place called Hauptwache. And it was like sort of like an intermediary place between where I was at and downtown Frankfurt. Okay. And there were a couple of record shops there, and I would hop off and hunt there. And then I would go on to the Hauptbahnhof, which is the main train station right in the middle of downtown Frankfurt. And there were a number of record stores there, as well as music stores, guitar stores and stuff. And so I would go to all of those. And man, I bought so many amazing records, and it includes the early stuff from Sodom, Destruction, and Creator.
Yeah.
And a number of other bands like Assassin, and and stuff like that the weird thing is, my first band in Germany, we called ourselves Assassin.
Yeah. But the thing that was cool though was
know about the German band.
Yeah, but for metal fans that don't know, I mean, like German, like we have the big four of thrash metal that we recognize here, but Germany has their own big four, which is pretty damn good too.
Yeah, what do they call it? Sodom, Destruction, Creator, and what? Tankard, probably.
Tankard, yeah.
Yeah. Teutonic Thrash was the deal.
I mean,
but I was getting into I was getting into stuff like Venom and a lot of bands that no one ever heard of, like a lot of French heavy metal bands. like Sortilege and H-Bomb and Satan Jokers and just a lot of English stuff, new wave of British heavy metal stuff, like Witchfinder General and all that stuff, and Diamond Head and what have you. And I had an incredibly killer collection, of stuff that I discovered just out in the wild and by seeing ads on the in the German rags, which at the time they were rags, they were newsprint rags,
Right.
Rock Hard Metal Hammer. They're glossy, respectable magazines now, if they're still around. I don't even know, because I haven't seen too many magazine stands in the United States these days. But
No, that's kind of a thing. I think all the publications now are online anyway. You know what I mean? So you get online subscriptions or whatever. But a big debate that has been raged on, and you've been there, immersed in that scene for so long. Is there somebody that you would consider the forefather or the godfather of death metal? It's always bantered back and forth. Is it Possessed? Is it Chuck with Death? Who really?
Well, I've had, as you can imagine, I've had the opportunity to talk about this with both Chuck in the past and Jeff Becerra in both in the past and in recent years. And Jeff always holds the line that he coined the phrase, coming up with the song death metal, and I think that's probably not arguable.
Yeah,
that's an inarguable point. He definitely came up with it. But what Possessed was doing was some sort of a median point between what ended up being death metal and just a couple years later, and or a year or so later, and thrash.
Yes. Yeah.
So they were. I think Possessed was kind of a transitional band. I think they were a proto sort of death metal band. Sort of people we want to say, people I think legitimately say Black Sabbath was the first real heavy metal band. But there's always those guys who will say Blue Cheer, man.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Well, let's also not forget that back in the 80s, Jethro Tull beat out Metallica at the Grammys for a metal album. So I guess it's I guess everything can literally be subjective.
Yeah.
In which you want to deem as metal.
Yeah. But I think Jeff deserves a bit of the credit, but if in my opinion, the very first full-fledged death metal album with straight line ties to what death metal is today, it's going to be Scream Bloody Gore.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And I've had a couple of guests on here recently who have even gone so far as to say that extreme metal, the metal world, contrary to what we see in sports and a lot of other areas of life, is really an old man's game. Would you think this is a fair assessment? The old bands are really, that's not to impugn any young metal bands coming up, but we are still seeing, all the legendary bands still out there kicking ass to a high degree.
Yeah. Unless you go nuts on stage and hurt yourself doing it, playing music while there's some physical endurance and physicality involved in it. It's nowhere near as impactful as sports on the body, on your body. Those guys have to do everything that musicians have to do, travel and live out of hotels and buses, et cetera. But then they're also like smashing each other at full speed, on the field, on the court, So, I think it's, first of all, it's possible for musicians to last longer than high level sports figures. I guess that's the most obvious thing. Maybe less obvious is just that, some people, it's different for every band, it's different for every musician. Some people burn out early. They have a bright flame and then just burn out. If they stick around, they're just barely a flicker of their former selves, and it can be a little sad, But so many of the old school guys are still around and burning just as bright, if not brighter than ever. It's like they found a whole new well of creativity.
Yeah.
A whole new source of, a whole new, fuel tank for the inspiration machine.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I certainly feel like I'm playing guitar better than I ever have in my life.
Interesting. Yeah. That's
Now,
cool.
Certainly my technique is better.
Yeah.
I've been working on it the last couple of years. I mean, since COVID, when I found myself with lots of extra time in COVID, when everything started shutting down for a little bit, I just picked up the guitar and started playing. And at first, I was really shocked and dismayed and disgusted with myself at how much I had slipped. But it didn't last long. It was kind of like riding a bike. I just had to kick the dust off and the rust off and grease the wheels a little bit. And the next thing I know, I was right back up there doing everything that I could do in the past. And now I'm able to do some things that I was never really able to do very well.
What does that mean when you say you need to brush up on your technique? Because I think a lot of people, contrary to what you're saying right now, look at your playing on some of the aforementioned albums and think that you are a technically great guitar player. So when a guy like you gets in that position, what exactly, for those of us, for people out there that are guitar players that might geek out on what you're saying, and for those laymen that don't know what you're saying, what do you mean when you say you got to go like refine your technique after playing for so many years?
Well, this may be shocking for some people to hear, but it may also be encouraging.
Yes.
It may also be a very encouraging thing for them to hear. And that is that while music itself came naturally to me, music came naturally, the highly technical aspects of it did not. I can hear a melody and then I can play it on the guitar.
Right.
With almost no mistakes. Quite often I can do that.
A natural ear. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a skill that I worked on over the years, but
Yeah.
it didn't take me long to develop it,
Yeah.
And I think most people can develop that, if they just work on it. But the highly technical stuff, the fast stuff, all the sweeping, whatever, all of that was never easy for me. It's still not easy for me. There's certain aspects, that are easier than others, like legato is super easy for me.
Yeah.
Fast picking on one string is super easy for me, but crossing strings and having to deal with different cross strokes and things like that, and oh man, and playing any crazy things with like arpeggios or whatever, I mean, that's such a dumb buzzword. I hate it. Sweeping, because it doesn't mean one thing. Sweeping is a number of things, but
right.
In music, there's a few different things to be called a sweep, but people get hung up on that and what is ultimately a fairly easy technique to do, and people think it's so hard, but it's not that hard. But there are things about it that can be hard, especially when you start trying to combine it with other technical, moves. That stuff, all that speed and accuracy, et cetera, that I'm, as you said, known for.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here to tell you, kids, it didn't come easy to me. I had to work on it every day, and I still have to work on it all the time.
Here's the blockbuster, kids. James Murphy telling you, practice your fucking guitars.
So, there's no, I mean, I suppose there are people out there that for whom it comes really naturally, but I mostly, of all the people that I know, myself included, we've all had to work at it on an ongoing basis over the decades to keep it up, to keep it sharp, to keep it in your fingers, to keep your ability to do it. Because while playing guitar can kind of be like riding a bike, there are aspects of it. You may hop on the bike for the first time in 30 years after having been like a crazy good BMXer back in in your preteens and teenage years. But decades later, sure, you can hop on a bike even if you haven't done so in decades, and you can ride it.
Yeah. Or
You might
facing
even,
it.
yeah, you might even be able to do a couple hops and pop a wheelie or whatever. But a lot of the really technical stuff that you would have done when you were a kid, like backflips off a ramp and crap
Yeah.
like that. And I don't know the jargon.
Those days are over.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they may not be over, but first of all, if you've done what most people do over the decades, which is gain weight, you better lose some,
Yeah.
and you better get back in good physical shape.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to practice, and you're going to have to work your butt off to get back up to doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Sure, guitar's like riding a bike. I can pick it up and I can play some songs, and I can even play a couple simple solos. But to get back up to the full level of the most intense stuff that I've done in my career over the years, I had to practice.
I agree with the statement that you made, though. I think that is an encouraging thing for young musicians and or guitar players.
Yeah, because that's right. And the reason for that, Mark, is that I've been that kid sitting in my room going,
yeah,
I just suck at this.
Yep.
I'm never going to be able to do it. Every time I make some progress and then, I don't play it for a week, I come back, I've lost it. Well,
yep.
Yeah, well, crap like that happens to everybody. You got to stay on top of your chops.
Yeah, you do.
It's universal, It's universal. The most famous guitar players, right down to, kids in their bedroom trying to figure this thing out,
And so, like, when you do guest guitar solos, or you do work and you choose to produce, or
stop saying do work. It's childish.
But like, if you're going to produce or mix or even lay down a guitar solo on somebody else's album, how do you choose the projects? Does it got to be something that speaks to you or interests you on some kind of level? Like, if a project comes by or gets offered to you, how do you decide what you want in on and what you don't want to do?
First of all, I would say I'm a professional. In other words, I do it professionally, which simply means for money. It doesn't speak anything about your ability level.
Right.
It's assumed that in order to be professional, in order to have people pay you, that you're going to be at a certain level.
There better be some proficient
that people would want, to pay.
Yeah.
But that's literally all it means, is you get paid. So I get paid to do it. So if I have free time and a project comes my way, it's almost for sure that I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And even if it isn't something that speaks to me right off the bat, I will take that as a challenge to make it into something more compelling for that artist, So it's my job then to find the thing that's going to take this part and make it really compelling. And I look at that as a challenge. So now, certainly there's times when I get a little bit overbooked, and then I may pick and choose a little more and have to say to someone like, hey, I just don't have time to do it right now. So you might want to either, have your guitar player do it or find another guest. Alternately, if you want to wait for me, maybe try to change this part to something that's more interesting for me to play over, because I tell you, one of the hardest things that you get as a session musician is some kind of really super choppy, super rhythmic, choppy thing to have to play, especially if it's just repetitive. If it just keeps doing the same thing over and over, to have to play a solo to that, it's hard. And the only thing you can really do is sort of try to come up with some novel motifs that will lock in with the rhythm.
Right.
And, because guitar players, when it comes to soloing, we want to solo over changes. We want big changes.
Yes.
Because that lets you go on a journey. It lets you tell a story and reach a climax and, blah, blah, blah. And a static part that just repeats. It's really choppy and really rhythmic with almost like atonal chord changes, because they're not, they're just being metal and playing all the.
That's not interesting to you.
By the time you try to figure out what scale that is, it's like, it's it's every chord he's almost playing, it's chromatic almost, and at that point you just have to come up with something that matches what they're doing chromatically and that will sound cool against the rhythm, that will lock in with the rhythm. And so it's almost like you're coming up with a motif, or an overdub part rather than a solo per se, a classic solo. But I take all, I take it all, because it's all a challenge.
As somebody who has been in a band before, are you interested? I know people will obviously tap into the fact that you talked about, writing songs. You've expressed interest in possibly revisiting Discarnate. But Are you interested in that? You know, because you've been doing the guest work and the session stuff, are you interested in being in a band at this point? Does the whole band thing, is that still an idea that you like?
Yes and no. Yes, absolutely, because it's always, it's always fun to get together with guys and make music and
Sure.
then to go out and play it. It's a blast. Do I want to go out and do 2-month long eat shit and die tours?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I was excited to do that in my youth,
Right.
and that's the
Right.
time for that.
Yeah.
But, where I'm at in life now, I'm a homeowner, I'm a husband, I
You're
have
eating good.
responsibilities.
You're eating good.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not trying to go out on the road for 2 weeks, eat hot dogs and warm, and
I
cold
get it.
pizza.
Yeah, I
And,
know.
convenience store hot dogs and whatever
Yeah.
cold ass pizza is left in the dressing room when you get off stage.
That conversation comes up a lot with musicians on here because I get it. As you get older, it's got to be harder to tear you away from your creature comforts. We just like what we like.
Yeah, yeah, and there's also just the fact that I live out in the countryside. That's where we live, and my wife works in town, but she does not drive.
Okay.
It's a little bit far for an Uber to make sense because it would suck half her daily pay away.
Right. Right.
Every day just to Uber back and forth. So we, if we got ourselves in a position where I was earning enough money touring that my wife could just sort of stay home,
Yes. Yeah.
and could order grocery deliveries and et cetera, and take an Uber when she really needed to go somewhere, then it would become a lot more feasible for me. But as it is right now, I'm, I can't leave her stranded out here in the damn woods.
I get that. Yeah, I know. I
So
get it.
these are practical concerns that probably don't, are not going to resonate well with your younger listeners, that are like, oh man, you just got to get out there and do it,
Yeah.
I got out there and did it for a long time, man.
Obviously, some 18, 19-year-old kid, he's happy to hop into the back of a van and go, and go off for 2 months. I mean,
yeah.
It's a little different when you get up there in age. And those young musicians out there, man, they may not want to admit it now, but they will be at this point at some point in their career. Absolutely, what I mean.
Absolutely.
And I usually hear the magic number. Even with grizzled veterans of the music industry, 3 or 4 weeks really starts to push the brink of how long bands want to go out for nowadays. That's about the outer limit.
Yeah, dude, I used to go on 2-month long tours, man.
Right. That's what I mean. And so I want to get your opinion on any of these these tributary things that we see towards death and Chuck Schuldiner. Like I know they have like Left to Die. You were part of, if I'm not mistaken, Living Monstrosity for a while, correct?
Yeah.
Do you like seeing bands out there? Like, are people giving a fair representation? Do you like to see? I mean, this must make you happy to some level, seeing Chuck's music being kept alive.
Yeah, like I just noticed that Death to All are going to be doing a tour where they play symbolic and spiritual healing music.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. I've done an ensemble like you mentioned with Terry, and Terry Butler, the original bassist from Spiritual Healing, and Gus Rios and Matt Harvey. And we called it Living Monstrosity at the time, and we did a couple shows and and a live stream, and it was really it went off really well. People seemed to receive it well. It was enjoyable. I had a little bit of a hard time, but I held it together because it was my first time being on stage in 16 years. So
it was just revisiting those songs and kind of dusting
those songs.
off.
Yeah, we played the entire album, top to bottom. And I think we are all open to doing that again. Doing spiritual healing, and at the time we just did 2 area shows, at the same venue back to back, over a weekend, and it was never really meant to go further than that. But then they did it Left to Die with basically exact same band except Rick instead of me, and they went out and did Leprosy.
Right.
And I guess that has done reasonably well. They've taken it all over.
Yes.
And so I'm definitely open to possibilities with reprising the spiritual healing tribute show. I mean, come on, it's me and Terry.
Yeah.
Bill lives in Japan, and it's the closest you're ever going to get.
Yes, it is.
To seeing that the actual lineup, you got half the lineup there playing,
Yep.
playing the songs, and to me, it's like that type of format, that type of thing would be the perfect thing to get me out on the road.
Yeah.
Because I know it has an audience. I know it would do pretty dang well. I know we could go out and do like a festival run, do a boat gig, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera, and it would be successful.
I think, judging by the comments
be,
I got from your first appearance on here, that any form of Discarnate that you took out would do extremely well too, my friend. I know that for a fact from seeing in the comment section that there's still, even 30 plus years later, quite the buzz on that album. It really did make an impact on the extreme metal world. So, I mean,
yeah, like I was saying earlier, it's much popular now than it was then.
Are you able to put a finger on it, man? So much extreme metal has been put out there. Are you, as a guy who performed on that album, are you able to kind of like look inwards at it and give any kind of a speculation or reason as to why it's resonated with people?
Well, I think it was a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And that always sort of helps albums have a little bit of longevity.
Yep.
You don't want to be, if you're too much of your time period, you soon become a relic of it.
You're just lumped in with everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was fairly, forward thinking and stuff for the time. And some people got that and some people didn't. But, the people who liked it loved it, like I said. But the nature of it that I just described is what helps it to, resonate into the current day, and that's not something I could have or would have predicted, to be honest. I would have, when I looked ahead, I sort of thought, at the age that I am now, that I would be, retired from all of that.
Right. Yeah, I think we'd all like to envision that scenario, and it does.
No, it's not that I want it to be. It's just I sort of thought, like, yeah, this is probably, so many other movements came and went.
Right.
I didn't know this would be the one that. Who knew that the genres with the most longevity of any other genres would be extreme metal, death metal, and hip hop.
I know. And you're right. And maybe you could throw.
You got the country's always.
And maybe you could throw country in there, yeah. But those pretty much are like the main three genres that are still standing there, where you could be economically viable at all. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously, as I mentioned in the comment section, man, you're a guitar hero and to so many. In your travels, even from back in the day when you were out on tour or doing festivals, any of that kind of stuff, did you ever get a chance to meet anybody that you kind of looked up to? Did you ever get to rub elbows with any of your heroes?
Oh, absolutely! I got tons of stories like that. Everything from meeting Robbo Robertson.
Yeah.
Back in like '87 when I was over in Europe with the UK with Agent Steel at a rehearsal facility and shooting the crap with him, and because I was a massive fan of Another Perfect Day. I was just massive fan of that Motorhead album, and a massive fan of the stuff he did with Thin Lizzy as well. So but another one of my absolute heroes, who I had the honor of covering when I was in Testament, we did the first single off of Low was Dogface Gods.
Yep.
And we did a B-side for it that's not on the album. You can get it on a best of that came out a long time ago, but it's Sales of Sharon by the Scorpions. basically an Uli Roth tour de force on guitar.
Yeah.
Starts
Yeah.
with, the song starts off with one of the most amazing solos in rock or metal
Yeah.
to this day, and he did it back in the 70s. And so I was quite happy and also a little bit intimidated to find out that we were going to be covering it, and I was going to have to play that solo. And the band wanted me to play it note for note, and I wanted to play it note for note because I like, it deserves to. It's such a good solo. It deserves to be played note for note.
You're not going to tinker around with Uli stuff.
Yeah, no, not at all. And and we heavied the song up a little bit, but I endeavored to learn that solo nuance for nuance best as I could.
Yeah.
And I did, and I recorded it, and that came out in '94, like I said, as the B-side to the Dog Face God single. And then probably about 2006, I was at the NAMM convention in Anaheim, and I spotted Uli standing in the lobby of the Hilton. And he was just surrounded by 7, 8 people, getting autographs.
Yeah.
And, lots of people were milling around. It was sort of like every night after the NAMM convention is just a big party on the floor of the Hilton and several other adjacent buildings that you can walk to and whatever. It was a big complex kind of. And so I wanted to approach Uli, but I'm too polite to walk up and try to insert myself when there's already people there. So
that's awkward.
I've always been sort of timid like that. And so I, just not wanting to be rude and interrupt other people's time. They got there before me. And I didn't want to crowd him any more than he was already being crowded. But I waited patiently until those people milled away, and then Uli turned and looked at me. So sort of, I guess, a signal like, okay, guy,
you're up.
You're up. So I came over and I introduced myself. I told and he was very gracious, very nice. And I said, yeah, I got to cover Sales of Sharon when I was in Testament, and back in '94. And he, all of a sudden, his eyes got wide, and he goes, "You're the guy? You're the guy? You're the guitar player on that?" And I was like, yeah, that was me. I played your solo on, with Testament on that
respect from him.
And this is what he said. He goes, "You're the only one who ever did it right."
Wow, that's high praise.
The only one who ever played it right.
As a guitar player, that's got to make you feel incredible,
dude. I was just bursting at the seams with just humility and an almost fatal combination of humility and pride.
Yeah,
it was like an 8-ball.
Yeah,
that's what you call a hormonal 8-ball. Humility and pride just hits you, and all your all the chemicals in your brain just start fighting each other.
So I would be remiss, and I know I would catch a beating in the comment section, and I don't want that to happen, man. I just want to go back to Discarnate for a little bit. Are you thinking definitively, because the landscape of music has changed so much? I don't need to tell you, it seems like people's attention spans have dwindled. It seems like it's become a track by track world. People, not everybody, but a lot of people aren't just dropping the album no more and going for the whole journey, taking the whole ride. They're picking and choosing. Have you thought going forward, if you were to put out new music from Discarnate, do you think LP after all this time, or is it an EP world? What makes more sense nowadays?
Well, we'll see what we write in the first place. First of all, I don't want to bite off.
Right. Understood.
More than I can chew before I figure out, what ingredients we have,
Yeah.
To use a cooking analogy, which are very prevalent around this house.
So you're not definitively leaning one way or another right now. LP, EP.
I would love to do an LP simply because that gives you more material to draw on. But we'll see what happens. It could be an EP or something first. But I'll tell you one thing: I'm not a singles guy. If I were going to do a single, probably I would want to do some re-recordings, recreations of the old songs, just to sort of start kicking ourselves into gear.
Yeah. I would imagine after that much time away, man, people would probably want and crave more too. I don't know that they'd be happy with just a track or two.
Yeah, I want to just get the creative juices flowing, get us back in the mode of Disincarnate.
Yeah.
Because I moved on to Testament right after that, which is a very different thing, and then I did my solo stuff, which is very, very, very different. And I did other bands, and then I was producer and engineer for quite a long time. So, I'm not necessarily, I got to get myself fully back into that zone.
Right.
And so who knows? I can't really speak definitively as to whether it would be like an EP or an LP, but I have to say, as you say, it's become like a singles world, where
Sadly.
people just drop singles, and it is, I think, a tragedy because everyone's just trying to please the algorithm.
Yep.
And
spoon feed,
and cater to modern low attention spans.
Yep.
It's probably good business, but when it comes to music, I've never been a good businessman.
Well, and thank God the metal world seems to, I believe on some level, almost every album is in some way, shape, or form, how the arrangement is, all albums seem to be conceptual in nature. So I think metal bands are better encompassed on an LP. They're trying to tell a story. They're trying to get a message across. You need a little bit of time. You need some tracks to do that.
Plus, there's just something that happens when you're only trying to write a single every few months.
Yeah.
And that is, the world is losing rapidly. More and more as more and more artists go that route, we're losing deep cuts.
Yes.
We're losing that. It's going away.
Yeah, and that is sad. And that is sad, man, because, a lot of the most interesting stuff you find on a lot of the albums are deep cuts that unfortunately people don't go into. And they're exploring those less and less now with streaming.
Yeah, when I was a kid and I'd put on an album, I'd sit and listen to both sides. I'd flip it, listen to side B, and there's always some songs that weren't really necessarily the immediate standouts.
Right.
They weren't the singles. No one really talked about them. They were just on the album. They were deep cuts. They were album filler, people thought. But some of those songs, certain percentage of those songs would really start to grow on you. They'd become earworms over time.
Yes.
And they would end up being your most favorite songs on the album, your most beloved tracks, and that you just couldn't live without. You can't live without. And they were never singles, and and the more that bands go the route of just only putting out singles, the more that resource, that well of awesomeness just dries up and goes away.
Yeah. Is it safe to say like you as a guitar player, going back to your upbringing a little bit, would you pretty much define yourself as self-taught? Is that accurate?
I would say I was to use the fancy word, an autodidact. Yeah. And I put it like that because I did the whole self-teaching thing, just sitting down, figuring out, what notes were where. Of course, I had to have someone had to show me how to tune.
Right.
And then I had to get a tuner, and I learned all that. And so I had to learn certain things from different people, but they were just like buddies or whatever, people in school that would show me things. And but I did plenty of sitting and just figuring out by ear. So I taught myself, but as I got deeper into it, as I advanced more and more, I started relying on and using a lot more often, self-learning materials like books, books and videos. Used to, back in the day, you could buy a book with a cassette, or you could buy a VHS tape. I still have some of those old VHS tapes.
Well, nowadays you can learn almost anything on YouTube, though. If YouTube was around years ago, God knows how many guitar players or bass players or whatever we would have. I mean, you can learn damn near anything on there now.
True, but you also have it can be a two-edged sword in a way. First of all, you have to get good at understanding what is good.
Yeah, that's true.
At judging the quality of a tutorial, of an online tutorial.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're sitting there spinning your reels with some joker showing you a bunch of crap that is just flat out wrong or a backwards way of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then maybe someone's trying to show you how to play, and okay, maybe they can play fast and do a few things tricky and flashy. But when it comes time to just
something
get
simple,
a note and bend and get a vibrato, they can't play an in-tune vibrato to save their life. It's spazzy and sour sounding and like, why are you teaching people, man? You know, they're going to listen to you playing that, and they're going to think that's what it's supposed to sound like, and then they're going to go out and sound awful. You know,
is it a fair assessment to say that with your mixing and your producing that you're self-taught at that, or did you kind of lean over someone's shoulder or have somebody kind of apprentice you in the technical aspects, the behind-the-scenes stuff?
Well, I learned a number of ways. First of all, once the bug bit me, which was 1992, I would say I really started getting bit by the bug that I wanted to learn how to record and be perhaps a producer, you know. And so what I did right away was I started buying magazines, recording magazines, you know, mix, sound on sound, etc., stuff like that.
Yeah.
The industry, you know, the industry rags, you know, and grab those and read articles and learn about things. And then I would go buy books about it, you know, and then when I would go into the studio to record, you know, something that I was playing on, you know, I would talk to the engineers, grill them, ask them, you know. And then so then by the time you know, 94 rolled around and I was in Testament in the Bay Area, well, you know, I was getting a paycheck from the band, and even when we weren't doing anything. So when we weren't doing anything, I would go out and go around to Bay Area studios and just like ask to intern or to be a runner or just whatever position they had, assistant, an intern, a runner, whatever you have, I'll do it. I'll coil cables for you. I'll run, go get sandwiches, you know, for everybody, whatever, as long as I can be in the studio and witness and occasionally ask when, you know, when the artists are not going to be inconvenienced, when the artists aren't around, I can ask a couple questions and learn, you know, and, you know, get taught things. And so I did it sort of that way initially. And, you know, and then as you know, I never really stopped. I mean, at one point in 2005, even though I was already working, you know, in the industry as an engineer and a producer, you know, I had the fortune to go hang out with Andy Sneap at his studio in Derby, England. And, you know, he sort of like taught me things by putting me to work.
Yeah.
You know,
soak it up. Yeah.
I helped him out on this, the Clandestine project with Martin Walker. And, you know, he would give me tips and pointers about what he would do. Then he'd let me alone to do whatever I was going to do with the information he gave me and with whatever I already knew. And then he'd come in and he'd give a critique and he'd say how he would show me how he'd change it and fix it. And, you know, that was invaluable to me. That's huge. Know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, and he even pressed me into service as, you know, into his B room when he was working on the Nevermore album, This Godless Endeavor, because they wanted to record this extra little track and he didn't have time to do it. Well, so I ended up recording it in his B room, and then the band asked me to play solo on it, so I played solo on it. That's cool. But you know, but I'm always just keeping my eyes. I used to always just keep my eyes and ears. You know, lately, you know, for quite a while now, I've just been a hermit in my own space. But that has not stopped me from keeping up with. You know, if I see an interview from an engineer I admire, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to bookmark that, and I'm going to come back and watch it. And you know, maybe you pick up some little insight about how they see something, how they think of something. For me anymore, it's not the technical aspect of learning how to do it. You know, I learned enough of that a long time ago, and I know how to learn anything that I don't know. I know how to go find it out. For me, the biggest revelations for me these days, like I said, they're not the details of how to use gear or mic things. That you know, I've got a handle on that for the you know, after all these years. But the biggest revelations for me is when you just hear like a philosophical insight about how someone thinks about something.
Right.
About how they conceptualize it.
Right.
And those are where you can continue to get insights from your peers for the rest of your life if you keep your ears open.
Those are the little pearls. Yeah, those are the little pearls you got to be looking for. Absolutely. Yeah,
exactly.
And so, is it safe to say, you know, because of what you do, is there ever a day when you just say, fuck it, I'm not picking up the guitar today?
You know, I never actually say that on purpose.
Yeah.
But I do have those days.
Yeah.
And I usually will realize them, you know? And I'll realize it, and it'll make me just. You gotta understand. Even next to my recliner in the living room, I have guitars. I have a couple of guitars right there.
Yeah.
So I'll reach over and grab it and pick it up and just play a little something.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a little Hendrixy lick or whatever.
Yeah. So a day doesn't go. It's probably pretty safe to say that a day doesn't go by very often where you're not playing something on your guitar.
Yeah, even if it's just a little bit.
Yeah.
Barely ever anymore. Now, like I said, there was a long stretch of time where that was just my reality. Days and sometimes even weeks would go by where I didn't touch a guitar because I was just recording, editing, producing, recording, editing, mixing, mastering, and day in, day out. And you don't have time to, you got a deadline, you don't have time to pick up a guitar,
Now, of course, the nurse part in me, that is my day job, as my viewers all know. The nurse side of me has to ask, because a bunch of years back you did have health issues. How is your own personal health? I'm sure people would love to know that.
Well, I'm on a regimen.
Yeah.
I still have part of it here. I haven't taken my full dose of my regimen yet today.
Yep.
I'm working on it.
Yeah. I'm starting to collect a nice little pile of pills myself. It happens when you get to be 52 years old. What are you going to do?
Exactly. I mean, a number of these are vitamins, but there's also prescriptions in there.
Yeah.
The wife cracks the whip on those. She makes sure I get them every day.
Yeah.
And she does the research, what vitamins we should be taking, this, that, and the other, and she makes sure we have them, and she makes sure that I get my prescriptions on schedule.
Yep.
And this is, fellas, this is why they say married men live longer than single men.
Yeah, behind every great woman, behind every great man is a great. Yeah, it's like we've been hearing it for years, and then finally it dawns on us one day. Holy shit, where the hell would we be without these women?
This is why they make sure you take your medicine.
Where would we be?
They make sure you go to the doctor, and they.
I'm 52 years old. I'm not sure that I would have gotten here without. I wouldn't even know if I even gotten this far without a good woman. I don't know. I sometimes have my doubts.
No, it's a blessing when you have it. In your life. Good luck to everyone out there.
Well, for people that don't know, though, it was pretty widely publicized, man, back in the day, man, that very much like your former bandmate Chuck Schuldiner, you had your own battle with cancer of the brain.
It was a tumor that was growing underneath my brain. It was not per se cancerous.
Okay.
In other words, it was not malignant. Unfortunately, Chuck's was.
Yes.
The type of tumor I had was not malignant. It was going to kill me all the same. I mean, people think, oh, it was a benign tumor. Those won't kill you. Yes, they will.
Yes.
They absolutely will kill you.
Yeah.
Especially if they're in your brain or, for instance, growing around your carotid artery. They will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
As our local sheriff likes to say, graveyard dead.
Yeah.
And so you have to, be getting checkups and stuff because, mine would have been caught a lot sooner had I had a doctor and had insurance and been going to checkups. But I did not, and I was not, and so it did not get caught, and I suffered a lot more than I needed to because of it. But I survived. Yeah. They say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. No doubt about it. It's left me with some lifelong issues that I have to be careful about. I gotta take care to, take my meds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I had a massive surgery and it's all taken care of. I'm that age where I'm dealing with, high blood pressure and, and I got some, thyroid issues.
Now, this is fun, man, right? You get into rock and roll and 52 years old, you're rattling off your fucking list of ailments.
Well, I'm being very careful not to be too specific.
I got them too, man. I got them too.
But, I got to, I have some ongoing things that I have to just stay on top of. And as long as I stay on top of them, everything's pretty good.
And I think people think me being a nurse, man, and I'm not cavalier about my health, man, but we don't always make the best patients either. I don't want to be taking any amount of pills on any given day either. I prefer not to be. I prefer to be not compliant with it. But, then after a couple of days of being not compliant, you start to feel the effects, And you realize, hey, I can't do this. I need this stuff. I mean, it just, it just comes with age, man. So if it wouldn't have been music for you, how early on did you know that was the career path, man? Like, did you have aspirations of doing anything else non-music related?
I mean, I don't remember from when I was a real little kid what I wanted to do. Probably like be an astronaut or a fireman or whatever the typical things kids want to do. I wasn't that typical though. I mean, I was into space and astronauts, so I was kind of like into that. And like a lot of kids, I was into dinosaurs, so I was into maybe being some kind of biologist or something. But a lot of kids think about being a policeman or a fireman. I just remember a Christmas where very clearly my parents had already gotten me a fire truck, and they were trying to get me to say I wanted a fire truck. Yeah, like I want a moving truck.
Yeah, you didn't want to.
I want a moving truck with a little furniture inside of it, and a little.
That's interesting. I wonder if your parents
had pallet jacks and stuff. I wanted all that. I wonder why. I don't know where I got that. But
were parents at some level trying to coerce you, man? Hey, man, go the fireman route. It almost seems like.
Well, I think it was just a matter they had already bought me a fire truck, and so they wanted me to want that so that they didn't have to go buy something else.
But I kind of get what your dad was doing, man, back in the day, though, dude. I think most parents would probably be a little skeptical of a child wanting to go into the arts and entertainment field. It is speculative.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could say that I thought my dad put that much thought into it. I really don't think he did. I don't think he did.
I don't think a lot of dads were, not to impugn any dads from the 70s or the 80s, man, but they just weren't like a hands-on. I don't think they were a very hands-on generation,
Yeah, no,
they just weren't, I mean,
my phone's so unstable.
It's just kind of sad that they weren't, man. I'm not trying to like discredit my dad, who has since passed away. He was a good father, did the best he could, but I mean, I don't think dads were blowing it out of the water back then. I mean, it kind of was what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like when you write music nowadays, or you're writing lyrics, or you're doing whatever, what's your creative process like? Do you treat it like a job? Do you go into a room and sit there and say, I'm going to write music? Or do spontaneous ideas just come to you throughout the day and you just deal with them as they come to you?
It's a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B.
Okay.
You need the inspiration moments. You need those. But if at some point you're not willing to take off the artiste's beret and strap on your craftsman work, smock or
you got to structure it up. You got to structure it up a little. Yeah. You got to knuckle down.
You got to put on your craftsman's tool belt and get to work, because if you don't, it's not going to happen,
right.
You can only rely on inspirado for
right
up to a certain point,
Yeah.
And I like to get like a handful of riffs and stuff that just sort of just came to me out of the blue that I really feel strongly about.
Is that what typically comes to you first? Is that what comes to you first with a great song, the riff, or is it a title or an opening line? What comes to you first when you're crafting a song? The riff?
Well, sometimes I have titles before I ever have songs.
Okay.
But I don't come up with riffs. Okay, now let me write a riff to suit this title. I don't ever do that.
Okay.
I'll just, riffs will also come to me. Song titles will come to me. Riffs will come to me. I'll document both. And then ultimately, once I'm putting a song together and getting an arrangement down, it starts to become more evident to me which, if any, of those song titles are going to be suitable for it. And they're going to allow me to write lyrics that will resonate. And trust me, I got at least an album's worth of song titles already.
Okay. And so what's the impetus for creativity? How do you typically get ideas? Are you a news guy? Are you getting shit from movies, or do a lot of reading? Where does the spark come from?
Well, sometimes song titles come from those places, where you hear something that just tweaks your ear, and then you take it and tweak it a little bit, and then you got an idea. Yeah. But riffs, not so much. Riffs just sort of come from somewhere in there inside,
Right.
I don't know what it is.
Somewhere,
and to a certain extent, everyone likes to believe that all their precious riffs, their little babies, were born inside them and are only of them, and it's not true. It's not, that would be like, reproduction by cell division,
Right.
You got your out everything that you've ever listened to, every riff that you've ever learned by somebody else, it has influenced you, has gone in, and it's just
Yep. It's made an
all the
impact
little
somewhere.
bits and pieces mushed together and solidify into something that sparks with what is inside you, and you just come up with stuff, and depending on how connected you are with whatever that spark is usually going to speak to how personal your stuff sounds, how much like you it sounds, or whether it just sounds like some rehashed Black Sabbath riff or Metallica riff or something.
Well, with me not being a musician, I do see the general consensus among public opinion when people comment on you and your playing is that you are one of those guys that does have an unmistakable tone, for lack of a better word. Me not being a guitar player myself, you know what I mean? Like I think I think opinion is that you have a pretty discernible sound.
Yeah. Well, I to differentiate what I think most people are talking about when they say they have my own sound.
Yeah.
From having my own tone, those are two separate things. Tone is like the sound of your amp and your guitar,
right?
And your sound, your personal sound, how you play.
Okay.
Your touch, your note choices, all of that sort of combines into your overall, big picture. But tone, I think of as more as something that you dial in on an amp and your effects pedals or whatever. But definitely people have always told me that they can tell it's me within a few seconds.
Yeah,
that's hearing me play something, and I've gone back and forth as to whether I perceive that as a negative or a positive. At the end of the day, it's nothing but a compliment, and I have to take it, as a good thing,
Yeah.
That's good. It's better to never be confused with anybody else. But sometimes too, I'm just like, well, damn it. Sometimes I want to try to sound like somebody else.
Right.
And I can't do it. And it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, you are kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't in the music world, because, you're not churning out the same stuff. You're not consistent enough. And then when you change your sound, you're alienating people one way or another, it seems like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
Always.
I honestly think, and as much as I love the metal community and all the fans, that love the same music that I love, and I feel, camaraderie, and with everybody. I do think that one of the the biggest pastimes of the average metal fan is to try to outdo each other on how early in an artist's work they gave up on the artist.
It does have its snobs. I'll agree with you, man. Yes, the metal community, I'll call them out for what they are. I think it's what you're trying to say in a diplomatic way. But there are, yes, absolutely, man. There are people who look down their nose and they think they're the high priest or priestess of metal, in their opinion, and how they view all these bands really carry some weight when it's all just so subjective. Like
you sit in a room and have a talk about Metallica.
Yeah.
People are going to say, "Oh, dude, they after Injustice for All, they went to shit." People will say, Master of Puppets was the last thing I ever listened to. Just for All's weird sound. I don't like it. And then everyone will say, "Yeah, dude, Ride the Lightning was it for me." They started doing too many sappy songs and crappy. They got too big for their britches. And then there's other people, other people will just say, Kill 'Em All was cool. That's my favorite, man. But then there's gonna be people that, nah, dude, the fucking No Life Till Leather demo,
right.
Metal Up Your Ass tapes, the whatever,
right.
And then there's always gonna be that one guy that's gonna say, well, I heard a shitty boom. I got a shitty boom box cassette, 1000th generation copy of their very first rehearsal, and the first time they ever got together in a room, and it's mostly distorted. You can't hear anything, and that's their best.
Yeah, the grainiest, dirtiest version of
everything
something
after that's a sellout. Suck ass. It's fucking, it's.
Although James has been on record saying,
don't.
James Hetfield's been on record as saying that they were accused of selling out all the way back to the Ride of Lightning days when they did Fade to Black, because that was considered a ballad back then, and that was when.
Dude, I was in Germany buying those records when they were brand new, hot off the presses, and trust me, I had my friends who said that.
Yeah, but me and our friend,
I had friends who said that.
But me and our
you talk to those same people today, and they love that album. But
me and our mutual friend Ray Curry were talking the other day, man, about what a void Metallica will leave in the metal world. Though, people don't realize it now, but when they decide to walk away, though, I think people will really start to appreciate. People should be appreciating it now, man. But the impact is just huge, right there, man. Like, they really kicked down the doors for extreme metal to really, for that era to really be ushered in. I mean, there's no mistaking like what they've done, and they are one of the biggest bands out there that seem to take the most shit. I mean, they've accomplished so much, man, but they are really the whipping boy of the hard rock and metal community. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. They poor guys can't do anything right. Either you want, it's either you want them to regurgitate Master of Puppets over and over again, and then when they do that, you don't want to hear it. But then the minute they change their sound, I feel bad for them. I don't feel bad for them because they are multimillionaires, so I can't feel that bad for them. But
it's kind of hard to feel too terribly bad for them.
I can't go. I can't feel all the way bad for them.
Yeah, people have their opinions. This is one thing's for sure. You're not going to talk someone out of their opinion.
No, you're not. No, you're not. But listen, man. This is episode 300 for me, man. I'm truly honored that you came on here and spent this much time with me, man. You're so generous with your time. I appreciate you getting this done and making it happen, man. And I wanted it to be a landmark episode. For me anyway, in my world, hitting 300 is big, man. And you are still, that episode we did 2 years ago was still the most viewed, man. I'm trying to be a man of the people here, James. Give the people what they want, right? Give the people what they want.
I can't guarantee you'll get similar performance out of this.
But trust me, though, man, there are people out there, man, who want to hear what you have to say, man. And as I said before, man, there were so many people that were happy that I brought up Disincarnate stuff, happy that I asked those questions. Apparently, I left some people wishing I had asked other stuff. So hopefully, I've made enough people happy, and we've gone down enough paths and we've run over a lot of territory and covered enough today that it will suffice until we can do this again, man. But I am happy to be in touch with you. Happy to know you, man. You are a legend, man. It's a pleasure getting to have you on here and chop it up with you, man. Really.
Right on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And for sure, stay in touch, man. And, we'll definitely do this again, man. I appreciate you, man.
All right, Mark.
All right.
Good talking to you. Yeah. Folks should add me on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Promote yourself. Yeah, man. If people want to keep up with what James Murphy's doing.
I'm on YouTube. It's just at James Murphy Producer.
Okay.
That's how you can find me on YouTube. At James Murphy Producer. Search at little at symbol.
Yep. Okay.
James Murphy Producer, all in one. You'll find me.
And are there other
on there? Give me a sub. I'm going to be doing some cool videos coming up. So,
are there other places on social media? Other places on social media to find you as well, or would that be the best place?
Well, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Okay.
The best thing to do on Facebook is to just follow if you can,
Yeah.
Because I think I'm at max friends. So
yeah.
But by all means, follow and you get a little insight into, not only my day-to-day life, but what I'm up to professionally.
Listen, I say it all the time, man. I say it all the time. Cause of Death, my favorite Obituary album. Spiritual Healing, my favorite Death album. It's no accident, man. You keep popping up on some of my favorite albums, man. So I appreciate you and all the great music you've given us, man. Really. It means a lot having you come on here, man. And we'll definitely do this again now that we're in touch. So keep on keeping on, and we'll talk again.
All right. Thanks, bud.
All right. Thanks, my friend. Good talking to you. Later.
Bye.
And there he goes, folks. Another epic, I think you'll agree with me, epic conversation with extreme metal guitar legend in the production world, the mixing world, the throwing down badass guitar solos on your album world. And, oh, by the way, popping up on some of the greatest, most seminal extreme metal albums ever. That's the legendary James Murphy. Boom. We just caught up with him. Hopefully I was all over the board with it, asking all the stuff you guys want to know. We got plenty into the Discarnate stuff. Hopefully there'll be more from that. It sounds like James is putting pen to paper. He wasn't at liberties to discuss too much of what the project will be or the length of the project, but it sounds like wheels are turning. So that's good for fans of Discarnate, especially ones who that album in 1993 resonated with, Dreams of the Carrion Kind, which is a seminal, amazing album. Do your homework. If you're a metalhead, go check that album out. And also happen to check out his work with amazing bands like Cancer, Obituary, Testament. He's been all over the place, man. So do your Death. So go do your homework. Go listen to anything with the legendary James Murphy on. You will get amazing technical playing, amazing shredding. The man is the man. He really is. In the metal world, in my opinion, he is the man. And I know, judging by the last episode, in the comments and the outpouring of love and interest, that much of the metal community feels the same way. So thank you to James Murphy for being episode number 300, which is absolutely massive to me. Again, thank you to the viewers, the subscribers, and of course, the multitude of amazing, talented people that have graced my show and been guests on here, without whom I could not do this. So I appreciate you guys. I'm taking this super serious. I'm not even going to give you my shtick about being Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. You guys all know that by now. Although with this hair, I think I'm looking a lot more like James Murphy Jr., except for the fact that we're the same age. Maybe we're long lost brothers and we're both sons of Diamond Dave. I mean, come on. We both got the luscious golden locks. You know, you guys know, if you've been following me, that I'm the real deal. I am actually the son of glam. I think we've known this now in 300 podcast episodes, folks. Come on. I don't need to tell you, but I will reassure you that my fleet of attorneys is working on it. And 2025, early 2026 is when we're actually going to prove that you were looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band, adored by millions of fans, the peanut butter to your jam, Mr. Wham Bam, thank you, ma'am, wop bop loo bop wop bam bam shazam, hot damn. We had such an amazing talk with James Murphy. I don't even know if I did my little shtick at the beginning, so I just did it for y'all again, and that felt good to get that out. If I don't look like the man and sound like the man, who does? For God's sakes. But I don't want to take away from the fact that we just had an amazing conversation with my David Lee Roth Jr. shenanigans and take the focus off. We just had another amazing conversation with the legendary James Murphy, OG guitar player in the death metal world. And I couldn't be more pleased. Great chopping it up with him. Hope you guys dug that episode. Make sure to like, make sure to follow Off the Couch Boxing and Pod Scum, both podcasts, one Facebook page. If you're into the pugilism, we got you covered. Off the Couch Boxing. If you're into the music and arts and entertainment, Pod Scum's got you covered. And if you're here on the channel right now watching, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to smash that notification bell to stay tapped in. Y'all know how we get down here, and let your boy Rexx leave you with one piece of advice, and that is to take it easy and keep it sleazy.